7, you ready? The Dumfries Town Council meeting of Tuesday, October 15th, 2019 is hereby called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilman Brewer.
Yeah.
Councilman Fields. Councilwoman Miles.
Here.
Councilwoman Neville.
Present.
Councilwoman Willis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Here.
Mayor Wood.
Present. We'll now have a moment of silent prayer and reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Clerk, is there anything to add or take away?
I'm not aware of any changes.
All right, Town Manager? Council? Okay, seeing none, I welcome a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion. So moved. Second.
It's been moved, it's been second. Seeing no discussion, please call for the question. Motion carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from June 18th, 2019.
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. Motion carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is the citizen comment period. And this is for any matter that's not currently on the agenda. Citizens may address the council for 3 minutes on anything that's not on the agenda. All right. Did you have anyone signed up?
I have Vanessa Gattis.
Okay. Dr. Gaddis, please take the mic.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My address is on file. I'm Dr. Gaddis, the president and CEO of the Prince William County Community Foundation. And we're pretty excited because we're kicking off our Operation Food for the Holidays, where our foundation is going to support the Axe Food Pantry, where during the month of November, we're going to be collecting non-perishable food items so that we're able to help stock the shelves of the Axe Food Pantry during the holidays. And so we do have a list. Every day we're collecting something different in order to provide those food items to the Axe Food Pantry. We have 6 locations across the eastern part here of Prince William County where you'll be able to drop off your donations. And then our foundation will go around and we'll pick up all of the donations from the different drop-off locations. We actually have 3 locations here in Dumfries. We have, of course, the Axe Food Pantry. We also have the Town Customer Service Center, the DMV Select, and we also have TD Bank, who is participating with us to collect these food items. And so we're asking for businesses, churches, citizens to help us to stock the shelves of the Axe Food Pantry because we are trying to help eradicate hunger in our community. Questions?
Thank you for, and please make sure our clerk gets a copy of that so we can definitely get that information out and see how we can assist.
Okay, thank you.
Is anyone else signed up to speak tonight? Or any matter not on the agenda?
I have Nancy West next.
Okay. Mayor West.
I would promise you that this may be the last time that you see me for a while, but anyway, my name is Nancy West. My address is on file. When I spoke to this council on October 1st with concerns I had about Colonial Downs again targeting Dumfries with their plans to establish a pari-mutuel betting parlor here, and giving you some history of what this community had done 20 years ago to fight this demon. I did not have time to talk to you about the falsehoods that Colonial Downs is doing in their advertising. We have received several pieces of mail in which Colonial Downs is saying that they had over 400 Dumfries residents signing a petition in support of holding a referendum to allow pari-mutuel wagering in Dumfries. That is not true. Through FOIA, I was able to obtain all the petitions, which I have here with me tonight. When an election official is checking signatures, there is a code put before each name. CI means could not identify. RNQ, registered but not qualified. RN, not registered. R, registered. I have gone over all of these petitions several times, and this is what we have. Here I have 8 petitions, front and back, which means 16 pages. On these 16 pages, there are only 10 registered voters. Here I have 16 petitions, or 32 pages, and these were carried by people who were paid by Colonial Downs to come into Dumfries and carry these petitions. 2 people were from Dale City, 1 was from Burke, and then Mr. Eric Fisher, who was with Colonial Downs. On these 32 pages, there are only 66 registered voters. Here I have 15 petitions, or 30 pages, front and back, carried by Linda and Eric Wilkins. And Linda was the designated petitioner that got all of this on the ballot. But they live in Dumfries, so most of their signatures are registered voters. This pack of 20 petitions, or 40 pages, were not counted by election officials because once the required number of signatures are obtained, the election official does not continue counting. But on these sheets, I found 27 Triangle addresses, 2 Woodbridge addresses, 3 Chesapeake Drive addresses, 1 with no address, and 1 lady put her address as Dumfries Shopping Center. I even found on some of the pages, not on these, but on some that the election officials had counted addresses in Stafford, Quantico, and Triangle. Colonial Downs has again been very untruthful with the citizens of Dumfries, as well as using false information in their advertising. They may say they have 400 Dumfries residents who signed the petition. That is not true, as you can see.
That's your time.
They may have 400 people who have signed the petition, but only 160 registered voters.
Thank you, Mayor West. I gave you about 4 minutes there. You had 3.
I am asking citizens of Dumfries, please vote no on November 8th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is anyone else signed up to speak?
The other individuals are signed up, but it's for an action item.
That's for action item?
Yes.
Is anybody else here that didn't get a chance to sign in that wanted to speak on something that wasn't on the agenda? That's not on the agenda. You want to speak about something that's, okay. All right, please state your name and your business. It's not on the agenda, right? All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tony Aslami. My address should be on file. I actually been in this town for 9 years. Didn't live here, but ran a business here. First off, I want to say in this past year, I never had ever been so welcome to this town of Dumfries, from the town council, the mayor. I mean, oh my God, even the chief. I mean, this has probably been the best year for my business and as well as safety. So besides that, I just want to say, as far as ex-Mayor West was saying about Colonial Downs, I don't have the time to go through all those signatures and all that stuff, but I have heard from many of the citizens of Dumfries, and they have said they signed that. But anyways, that being beside the fact, I think that would be actually really good for the businesses and the residents of the town, because that will just increase the property values. I mean, everything all the way around, bring more business. But other than that, I mean, that's all I really would like to say. Thank you to the town council, the mayor, the chief of police. You guys been doing a great job, and keep doing what you guys doing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, was there anybody else that wanted to speak to anything that wasn't on the agenda? All right, moving on from citizen comment period to our action items. Our first action item on the agenda is an ordinance to amend council salary. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. The two action items that are before the council this evening are concerning the council salary. Item A would amend the actual salary for all council members in the town code. Item B would make those necessary budget adjustments within the fiscal year 20 budget to make those increases available to go into effect beginning January 1, 2020.
My question, is there currently anything in the code written about council salaries?
In the town code, no.
And so this, you want to add the salaries to the town code?
Correct.
Okay. And the second one is the budget amendment
Yes, sir.
to make that, okay. All right, council, any discussion? Councilman Brewer.
Is this part of the public hearing that we were having?
Well, discussion from council, and then I'll open up the public hearing. All right, you want to wait, Tess? Okay, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Rogers, action item B, the ordinance to adjust the FY20 budget. Can you please explain, and I know that you have explained it once before, but because I'm sure we have new eyes and new ears this evening, please explain once again where the money for the council raises will come from, how it will impact the line item that it appears to be drawn from. And please do so in layman terms so that everyone can understand clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Layman's terms. Okay. The two items, there was two items that the council approved for the FY20 budget. One was to provide a 2% salary increase to all town employees except for the town manager and the town attorney. And the other item was to fund a community partner grant program to allow town to administer grants to successful nonprofits that applied and were awarded. These two line items both had excess funds. All of the cost of living increases that were budgeted for the employees were provided to the employees. Due to some turnover that happened within the fiscal year, there were additional funds in that line after all of the 2% increases were paid. Additionally, the Community Partner Grant Program, $25,000 was budgeted, but only $15,000 was successfully applied for and awarded. So there's excess funds remaining in both those line items. And so all of those projects that were intended when we originally budgeted were indeed carried out. And these funds excess within these two line items. And so those are the two line items that would go to the council salary line to accommodate these increases.
Thank you. will council salary increases put any undue burden on our staff?
No.
Or taxpayers?
These are, in this fiscal year 20, the budget amendment will make the necessary adjustments to accommodate this within the current fiscal year. The other ordinance will firmly set the salaries for council members so that in future years, we will budget for the new salaries for the council and the vice mayor and the mayor. So I would say that there are funds that can accommodate within this budget to make these increases possible.
One last question, please. And when was the last time council received any pay increase?
I could not find a specific record. It appeared that in the past, the salaries were considered at budget times. And so funds were allocated to support the council salaries or stipends or whatever they were called in a given budget year. That's why there's an ordinance before you to actually codify the salary so that it's clear at all times what the actual salaries are. So
Okay.
I could not find a record of when the last time that it was changed.
How far back did you look?
Me and the treasurer looked through some hard copy files, and so I know we were at least in the 90s.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further comment, I'll have opened up the public hearing. Do you have anyone signed up, Town Clerk?
Jurgen Van Dyke.
Jurgen, the floor is yours. Just please come to the mic.
My name's Jurgen. My company's JJ Capital. We have a building on Possum Point Road, and we also have an event center. I didn't know that actually that this was I thought it was just in beforehand. So I read an article online in regards to this. So I wrote my thoughts. I read an article last week about a 50% increase in the salary and caught my attention. Being a business owner who has to watch every penny, my first reaction was one of outrage, which is why I decided to read the full article. Yet by the end of the article, I was even more outraged than when I started, but for a very different reason one might expect. How is it possible that in the year 2019, a mayor and a council member from whom we expect that they put their personal lives on hold, put in the countless hours, nights, weekends away from their wife, children, as well as their regular job, from who we expect to serve us and have our best interests in heart, who we trust with millions of dollars, as well as are good stewards of our money and public assets, who we expect to bring in from the county, state, and federal government, not millions, but $140 million for a Route 1, widening so that the local people can actually get around during rush hour. And weekends, instead of sitting in traffic for an hour plus to get from one side of the town to the other. Who we expect to bring in new business and promote our town so to increase the town's revenue so they can invest back into the community with better schools, social as well as mental programs, better safety, and continued improvement relations with law enforcement. And who we also expect to look forward and make sure that our needs are met 10, 20, 30 years from now. How is it possible that we expect all of that, yet we pay them an embarrassing amount? I was shocked that a council member makes $5,000, $216, a vice $7,300, a mayor $8,000 per year. I had to read it a few times as I honestly thought it was a misspell or the article was a joke by The Onion. In all honesty, how can we expect excellence and all what I mentioned above when we tell our representatives that they are worthless than what we pay them less than half of what a person makes the minimum wage, where the pay is very likely less than somebody on unemployment? Now, I understand that most of them have regular jobs and that in all likelihood, this is mostly a labor of love. I would have to know that I know the amounts, but as a tax-paying citizen, not only does it make me uncomfortable that we're being represented by people working for peanuts, it embarrasses me and it seems un-American, as well as not following the underlying principles of capitalism on which this country is founded. A person should be compensated fairly for the work he or her provides based on the principles of supply and demand. I want my representatives to give it all, 100% of all the time, to go the extra mile, and for that they should expect that in return I have their back. That they don't have to worry between putting food on the table and spending time to make Dumfries thriving and a safe town. we have been wanting for so long and which seems finally even in the realm of possibilities. I also want my representatives to make just enough so they also have something to lose, as it provides us taxpayers as a check and balance. If you make enough so you will feel some pain, if you lose your job, we as citizens have a way to keep you your foot to the fire, and as we can elect you in and out at the next election. The road to success is full of good intent, but it's the check and balance system that mostly ensures we stay on track and move forward. Another point I would like to make is that at the present salaries, it nearly makes it impossible for many citizens to even run for office, unless you have a double income household, or you're a business owner, independently wealthy, or you're willing to work several jobs. That cannot be what the founders intended. Public service should be possible for all. In conclusion, with the above in mind, and to ensure that the town of Dumfries keeps moving forward as being a place to move to, not move through, I not only strongly support the 50% increase for the whole council, vice mayor and mayor, I would like to put forward that you will consider to increase the 50% to 100%, as to put it more in line what is reasonable and fair, as what we're expecting as citizens is progress, not keeping the status quo. So we as the citizens need to provide incentives and framework for our representatives to spend the necessary time to accomplish those goals. To keep this system in check and balance, I also recommend that every 2 years, when we do have elections, we vote on any salary increase and decrease for said members, so we can vote based on their accomplishment. Thank you for your time.
Town clerk, is anybody else signed up to speak?
Julia Richards.
Okay, Ms. Richards, just come sign in, please. No, you can go to the podium.
First time.
It's okay. Just state your name and address for the record, and then you can speak.
So Julia Richards, 18032 Tebbs Lane, Dumfries. So I have very little to add to that exceptional accounting of what it means to serve and what it means to be valued for service. And I want to say that the reason I'm here tonight is because in the last year, I have been more motivated to participate in this town. I have been more incented to be a part of what's happening here. I have come straight from work to stand here in front of you to say, I value what you do, because the time I put at Forest Park High School as a volunteer, I know a modicum of what it takes to really respect your community enough to give your time, which couldn't be more valuable to any of us. So I want to say that, again, we're going to get out of this council and this team what we give and value from it. And I would support the increase.
Thank you. Who do you have next?
Geraldine Tribby.
Di-
agree with what was said.
All right. Next on the sign in.
Navale Torre.
Neverly Teray, 18138 Tibbs Lane, Dumfries, Virginia. I stand before the council to agree with the salary increase. If the town manager could not find the last time there was an increase, that tells me there that it has not been any adjustments. And yes, service should be valued. I've served on lots of boards, and that's very important. And when you do service and then you have a community such as this is my first time in a council meeting that I've seen these many people. So I applaud y'all for coming out and supporting this council. They have done a lot in the last year to get the public awareness. And that costs money. You got to get out, you got to go to meetings, you got to go to, it's your gas. It's a whole lot of things that goes in time. And you talk about a little increase in stipend, I don't see where that would be a problem. So I stand here in support of the increase, whatever they may agree upon, but it's long overdue. And I just appreciate everything the council is doing for this community. Thank you.
Okay, Don.
Maria Martin,
Maria Martin, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Maria Martin, and I am running for the 52nd District House of Delegates. And just trying to learn and know more about our district, which is Triangle, Dumfries, Del City, Woodbridge, and Occoquan. And it just happened to be that you are talking about this topic, which is very important. Running for the House of Delegates. I don't know if you know, but the salary is also quite small. However, there is this great desire, and I believe that is why you are representing the town of Dumfries. However, as you said, to have you perform with all the excellence and being able to perform, giving all you can, I think it should be also recognized. And I would say yes to all the points that you were talking. I don't think our founding fathers will intend that you were going to live in the little. I just learned this shoestring, and I understand that everybody has something else going on in their lives, but all the commitment that you have put to serve the people is great. I go forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Vanessa Gattis,
Hi, again. I stand in support of the salary increase because you can't do your job if you don't get the support. So I kind of did a little breakdown. And when you look at it, over 365 days, that's $22 a day for the mayor, $14 a day for the vice mayor, and a little over $8 for the city council members at the salary that you're currently getting. And you can't even buy a tank of gas for that amount per day. And so it's kind of disheartening to know that someone would go against a salary increase when, day in and day out that you put your time and effort into the city, the town of Dumfries, to make it a place where people want to come and live, and you want businesses to thrive here. And so, just like the gentleman said so eloquently, I'm one to support our business, supports the town of Dumfries, our foundation, and I think it would be tragic not to allow the salary increase for the work that you're doing here in the town of Dumfries. And so we wholeheartedly support the salary increase for the members of the council, the vice mayor, and the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyrone Brown,
Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, men and women, citizens of Dumfries, and visitors. I ran for council about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it wasn't about the salary. So what I know is these folks that's on the diocese right now, that it wasn't about money. They wanted to fix a community that was broken. So saying that, And now knowing how much they're getting paid, it's disheartening. I'm on the planning commission and I take an hour leave to come down to the meeting, and most time I'm late from traffic. I've sacrificed almost $100 in that 1 hour to come down to sit on the planning commission for a $50 stipend. It's not about the money. My point is, it's not about the money. But when you have people that dedicated their time, their weekend time away from their kids, to put emphasis on what's happening in Dumfries, that is a sacrifice. That's more than $100. It's more than $50 stipend. This is what they're about. I have one caveat about the salary increase. Across the board, everyone should be pulling their fair share. We're giving a salary increase. We're promoting a salary increase, but everybody on the dais should be putting in the time. I did some math a little different from your math. My math is if they work 8 hours per week at $25 per hour, that comes out to $7,200 a year. So if you're putting in at least 8 hours per week at $25 an hour, that's $7,200. So it's not that big of a cash flow. The other concern is I'm hearing that the salary increase will come from a fund that is excess. There was something to build that fund. And moving into the future, how are we intending to continue to have funds available for that increase? But saying that, I am all supporting of the salary increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy Ali.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Ali. I am the founder and CEO of Tomorrow's Cultivating Youth, and our organization address is on file. I have to admit, I had a speech ready, but everyone's pretty much said what I had to say in support of the salary increases. But I wanted to add that I have never seen so much interaction from a council before in the town of Dumfries on social media. Honorable Wood, I see you out and about. I thought it was wonderful to see you greeting our youth on the first day of school. I thought that was beautiful, that you actually took the time out of your day to see that. And being a daycare provider myself over 10 years and a founder of a youth organization, something that minute touches the hearts of millions. I want to say we appreciate you guys. It is wonderful seeing you out and about in the neighborhoods and doing a big difference for the town of Dumfries. I myself, working with you guys, have been wonderful, you know, to be able to communicate with you and make a change in the town of Dumfries. And of course, my heart is for the youth. So I support the increases. And to thank you all personally for what you are doing for the town of Dumfries. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no one else signed up at this time.
Does anyone else want to speak to this issue before we close up the public hearing? Speak now. Okay, please make your way to the mic.
My name is Fred Patty. I live on Bassett Court. I've been in the Dumfries town for over 50 years. And before that, I was in Triangle for the 27 years. I haven't seen anything where how much the dollar figure is. And this money that you have found in the budget, I don't know why it's not being spent to fix the streets. You got street signs out there you can't read from the road because of the trees have overgrown them. The grass on the side of the shoulders hadn't been mowed. I just wonder why that hadn't been done. We had a contractor in here. He's not here anymore, apparently. I don't know. And I'll bet you people that run for town council, when you went out to get your votes, you knocked on the doors, introduced yourself, and by the way, I'm running for the money. I want raise the taxes and get salary increases. It's not the 1.6 square mile area. There's not that much gasoline to get from wherever they live in town to here. I'm totally against it. Fix the streets and the other stuff first. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is anybody else wanting to speak before we close this public hearing? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Oh, okay. Well, come on, say your mic, say your name. I was about to hit the gavel.
All right, so good afternoon. I'm Charmaine Jones. I'm actually not a part of Town of Dumfries. However, I am a public servant. And I will say this, the fact that you haven't had any raises since 1990 speaks volumes about the value that is placed on you as civil servants. And I believe it's unfair. So I echo the sentiments of the first gentleman and everyone else, minus the last person who just came up here. I think that is unfair and unnecessary for the Town of Dumfries Council to basically have peanuts a day when, like someone said, the first gentleman, I believe, minimum wage itself, you make less than minimum wage, 1/4 of that, if I recall correctly. So I support the increase because as a member of TCY organization, sorry, I got slightly bothered with the last one because I felt it was unfair. But anyways, so I support the increase because as part of TCY, this council has been very involved in the youth organization, the nonprofit organizations. The support that you provide to the community itself is unprecedented because I know the last mayor and I can honestly say that I've seen a significant difference in this particular council. So that's all I have. I support it.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we're gonna close the public hearing. And we'll go to council discussion. Councilman Brewer.
Well, you might not have been able to find when the last time the council had a raise, but I can tell you when it was. It was in 2003. I was on council then and I abstained from the vote because I'd only been on there 1 year. Okay. And they raised it $100. If you're doing this for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. When y'all ran for office, every one of you knew what the pay was. You do it to improve your town because you love your town. You want to see things done in your town. I don't do it for the pay. As a matter of fact, 2 of the years that I served, I didn't accept any pay. The former mayor didn't accept any pay the entire time he was in here. You don't do it for the pay. You do it because you want to see change in this town. You want to see things change for the better. This council has been on here an average of about 1.5 years. And they want to see more money. Well, me, I'm going to vote against it. You're only obligated for 2 meetings a month. 2. Work session, regular meeting. That's $200 a meeting to go from your house to here. That's enough. On the other end of this 2% that was supposed to have been given to employees, these are employees that no longer work for the town. So you pile up the money from there. Don't worry about that this year. Worry about it in outgoing years. Because as the town manager said, they're putting forth avenues here to where it will be a town council that gets regular raises. On my behalf, what I think, the reason I ran was not because of money. As a matter of fact, when I ran, I had no idea that we got paid. I wanted to see changes done. Now, luckily, I've seen these things come into fruition. Everything's fell in place. But you got to get in here and you got to run. A lot of you don't even belong in the town. I mean, you don't live in the town. So you're coming up here telling us that we deserve the money. Well, I'm here to tell you, you don't do it for the money. You do it because you love the town and you want to see changes made. That's why I've been on here for the last 14 years. Well, served 14 years. Because I want to see changes made. Not because of the money. Lord have mercy. If I did it for the money, I'd be a poor son of a gun. I can tell you that right now. Wrong. This is a wrong way of thinking, serving on the town council. People in Quantico. Does anybody here know what people in Quantico make? $1. They do it for the love of their town. They do it for the money. You know, everybody has their way of trying to average this thing out. Oh, well, you're making this per hour. You're not serving down here 8 hours a day. This is not a regular job. You're here to serve the community. When decisions need to be made, you're here to make the decisions. And a lot of these decisions, the information comes by email. So it's not like you're having to run down here for 5 minutes. Doesn't happen. So, you know, whatever impression that you have that, we're taking off and we're going to all these meetings. Well, if you're spending gas to go to these meetings, you take your receipt and you turn it into the treasurer and you're reimbursed for your gas. Okay? So, this is a wrong train of thought on why you want to serve the town of Dumfries. That's all I have.
Council Lady Mouse.
I want to thank everyone for coming out and sharing your thoughts and opinions on the agenda items, whether you were in favor of it or you dissented. We do appreciate everyone's opinions and your input. And we are very responsive to your input as we have tried to be for the last year. I do want to say, no one is up here for the money. We all love our town very much. When we talk about motivations for why we're doing things, yes, it's absolutely true. We are obligated to come to 2 meetings a month. That is average. That will pass you, speaking in school terms. We're not a C council. We're an A+ council. So with that being said, we're required to do 2 meetings a month. What we put in is far more than 2 meetings a month. We could not give you the service that you deserve if we only came to 2 meetings per month. So with that being said, keep that in mind that we are not here to get rich. We're not here to make a profit off of the council. Everyone up here has a full-time job, and that's our primary means of support. We're not here to retire. We're here to serve, but we also want to be able to have the means to provide you with the best service that you deserve as our citizens, and that's what we will continue to do.
Council Lady Neville.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo Councilwoman Miles's sentiments. And with all that stated, I'd like to make a motion or move that we approve the ordinance to amend council salary.
All right, it's been moved.
Second.
All right, is there a second? We'll continue discussion. There's a motion now on the floor. Was there any further discussion on the motion? I'd just like to say, oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Fields.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm going to take my time because I start talking fast. We'll get emotional behind anything. I missed out some points. And I too ran a few years ago. This is my first term on council. And I did not know at the time what the salary was. I just waited until I got a check from the town and, oh, that's what it is. As Mr. Brewer alluded to, it's about 200, a little over 200, depends on what your tax on your W-4 is. So it's around $400 and something a month, or with mine, $300 and something a month. to go back to 2003, since the last time a raise was given. And I think most of you know that the heart and soul that we put into working and doing for the town. I served on the police department in this town for 8 years, and now 3 years on the council. So that shows you that I love the town. I moved away from the town and came back to the town to run on town council because I wanted to see change, and that's how I fell in love with the town. We're out in the community, and many of you I see a lot as I drive through the community, as I walk through the community, as I'm out doing 4th of July events and cookouts and so forth and so on. Like Councilwoman Miles said, that it's the things behind the scenes, where in our case, since we're public figures of the town, it's not really behind the scenes. Every time we're out in public, you see us. Every time we do something, you see us, but you don't see going over your notes and looking at an email in the late night or in the middle of the day while you're at work trying to, my job is, in the high level security that it is, you sneak on your cell phone to look at an email that something may be going on in town, or someone send you a text. Hey, Brian, what's going on here? I have no clue because I'm in DC. Speaking of that, being in DC, and many a times you see me come late to a meeting. But I'll just throw some numbers out there. Sometimes we've had these marathon meetings, and we're not getting out of here till 11, 12 o'clock at night. They have been. They're a lot better now since we got a different town manager. But let's just say I get off an hour early. I pay for the HOV. So an hour early, I'm missing from work. So I'm not getting paid that hour. Paying HOV, whatever it is, that alone is over $50-some. I've worked maybe 10, 12 hours. My normal shift is 12 hours. Let's just say it's the day that I work 12. And I've gotten up at 4 something in the morning. And I get here at 7 or a little after because I'm late, or I take a chance getting a speeding ticket coming down the HOV. I pay for that HOV. I've sat here till late and too tired to make it to work the next day. How much money have I lost then? That one day of work is what we make here in a month. But I've lost a day of work. I'm not saying we're in it for the money, but I just want you to see the realness of it, what our heart is. I don't care that I missed a day at work. Okay, maybe I got vacation, maybe I don't. But a lot of times I don't. I've used it all already. Because of days I have to call off because of late meetings. I've used it all already. So all I'm saying is look at the realness of it, look at the fairness of it. If Councilman Brewer can go back to 2003 and then so forth and so on, that's what, how many years? 16 years? So if you just do just a modest 2% per year, I don't even think it equals up to what we're about to get paid now, or to propose for that. So just think of us as real people, real persons, wanting to do a real job here for the town. Again, not in it for the money. Never was. I love this town. It shows in a lot of the things that we do. Like the man said, I forgot your name, sir. I wrote it down somewhere. Yes. I think the article that you read wasn't intended for you to get out of it what you got out of it. It was intended to make us look bad for requesting or for the request to be made. But you saw all through that and you came out with those comments that you made. I appreciate you for breaking it down the way that you did. Also appreciate the ones that are against it. But that's what we're here for. We are to make those things and make those changes, and I agree with you. I love all of you in here. All of you in here, I've sat down and had a conversation just about, or a couple of you I might not have met yet, but I recognize your face. And I hope that you see me in the community. I do some posting on Facebook when I'm out in the community. If I go other places and I represent the town, I do. I probably wore this shirt out, wash and wear, put it in the cleaners, or another one I have and wore it out. Because when I go to these places, when I represent the town, I'm wearing the town of Dumfries. I didn't ask for no reimbursement. A lot of things I do, I don't ask for a mileage or a stipend reimbursement. I just do it. That's what I'm about. That's all I got to say.
All right, so I'm going to chime in here. Been up here since 2012. I think since I've been on council, every single year we've reduced property taxes in this town and took it back to the equalization rate of the recession of 2008, 2009. I think we've reduced the B poll tax here very significantly. We've started some major projects in town. Now you're probably seeing a lot of the construction starting to happen on staging on Quantico Creek. We've secured property acquisition and right-of-way money to begin Route 1 as far as property acquisition and utility relocation, where we got a public hearing on Thursday that we're asking all the citizens to come to at Freedom High School to request that the I-95 study money, that they give us construction money for Route 1 construction. We're constantly out here as ambassadors for the town. We sit on boards and commissions outside of the town. Some of us serving on VML boards, some of us serving on Boys and Girls Club boards, some of us serving on Transportation Authority boards. We take plenty of time away from our family and friends, and we might not advertise all the stuff we're doing, but we're constantly fighting and we're out promoting for this town. Now, what we're doing here, there was a question asked, what happens for here? We're codifying this not for us, but for those of you who want to come and run. There's an election next year. You can vote half of us off in the next year, and in 2 more years after that, vote the other half. This ordinance and what we're doing isn't about us, but we want to give access to the person who's not individually wealthy or the person who can't afford to take off and drive down 95, to be able to give them a fair compensation where they actually also have an opportunity to run for council. Because if I wasn't an entrepreneur business, I couldn't even go do some of the things I do, like go show up to the schools, go to career days, go out here and encourage some of these youth to see people that lives in their community that's involved and to do these type of things. And so what we're doing is we're trying to codify something not for us, but for the next and the future people that's coming behind us. So we're just setting some up so that there's access, because, you know, the thing we heard often, and you notice in a lot of these elections, there's few in between who people who want to run because they can't see themselves sitting up here, or they don't see how they're going to get compensated or whatever to actually actively participate in something like this. So I just wanted to put my comments out there before we call for the question. There is no further discussion. Let's see. I will give Council Lady Willis and Vice Mayor opportunity. Do you want to speak on it at any?
In the past, we have talked about council raises. This isn't the first time. We've also talked about council people getting participation in the Virginia retirement system. And it was, you know, it was never brought to fruition. It wasn't because the council was not for it. It was just circumstances kept it from coming up. Looking at, I mean, I did some calculations, and just off the top of my head, the council, I'm not pointing at us or we or anybody else, the council itself, the mayor, if he had gotten a raise of even just 3% for 14 years, because there was a couple of years there was no salary increases for the staff at all. And I hope that if this passes, that whenever the staff does not get a raise, the council does not. But it's, you know, in almost $15,000. So that's what would have happened if this was passed back in 2003. But it's all up to the citizens' input and, you know, what everybody thinks is best. I think that you know, it's not for me. My time's up. I've got one more year on council. And, but for the future councils, I agree with the mayor. I think a lot of people, a lot more people should be able, more than anything, to be able to sit in this semicircle and serve the town. Money, of course, is not the object. I mean, $8,000. I mean, I don't even know what, I didn't even calculate the whole way through, but you know, it's not 50%, but just giving a salary increase to the council, none of us are up here for the money. Not one, none of us. And I'm retired. I mean, I can join hand in hand with the mayor and go to whatever's, but it's, you know, everybody has a life, and council is doing the best that they can do with everybody in each one's time slots. I don't teach. Sydney teaches. Ryan works in DC. So I've lived in this town 50 years. I've raised my kids here. And just taking the council hat off and putting the citizen hat on, I'd be out there voting for yes. I think that the Mayor West of the world should have had a raise. I think the Jerry Foremans should have had a raise. I think the Chris Brown should have had a raise. I think the Mel Bray should have had a raise. And I think that if we see things like Mr. Patty has brought to the attention of the town council and specifically the town manager, who is the person that it really falls in the lap of, let them know. If you need grass cut on curbs, do it. He needs to know, not me. You can tell me and I'll tell him, but the buck stops with Mr. Keith. So with all this being said, I think I'm for it more than anything because I think it's time for Dumfries Town Council and the Dumfries Town citizens to come together and have an equitable stipend, because it's not a salary, for our town council.
All right. All right, seeing no further to question, I'm going to wait for my clerk to come back so that we can call for the question here. It's time to vote. Councilman Brewer, do you have something else to add to close out the conversation?
Well, all I was going to do is put out there, you know, this is sort of like the Fox Garden hen house, you know, council voting for themselves a raise, kind of sound a little fishy. What needs to be done, this right here needs to be put on a ballot. Let the town citizens decide if the council needs a raise. Just throwing that out there, you know. I don't think that I should be voting for myself a raise with tax-paying citizens' money.
Council Lady Miles.
I just want to point out that all elected bodies vote on their salaries. So this is nothing unusual in what's going on tonight, just for clarification for the citizens.
Council Lady.
One of the things that I think this evening, I think what we needed to have was a public hearing. We really needed to hear from the citizens. And I applaud the powers that be to put this on the agenda as a public hearing so people could come in and say, I don't want it or I do. And that's just my own feelings.
All right, what's the motion on the floor, clerk, please?
Motion on the floor. Sorry. The motion on the floor would be to adopt the ordinance to amend the council salary.
And it was for both. What's the second one? In the budget amendment, right?
Clarification. Amended to what? Is there a monetary value that's going to be amended?
As stated.
She's got the motion.
As stated.
Go ahead.
To
As
move the
stated,
ordinance to amend council salary as stated.
as stated on what?
You should have a document in your packet.
Oh, you're going with that? So you're gonna double it? Okay.
That's not a double.
All right, so it's been motion, it's been second. All right, call for the question.
I'm gonna have to do this manually. Our system
Okay.
went down.
Oh, it just died on us.
Yes.
All right, so what,
Trying
All right, we're gonna call this meeting back to order. Next on the agenda is discussion items. We're gonna discuss the Town Council 2020 meeting calendar. I'm gonna turn it over to the town manager, Mr. Keith Rogers Jr.
Thank you, Mayor. Council should see on page 6 of their packet, there is the tentative schedule for 2020. So I just wanted to put this before the council tonight, so council could have time to see the dates, review them, make sure there are no major conflicts that we may be omitting. And then we can bring this back forward as a resolution at the next meeting to have council adopt the calendar for 2020.
So this is just introductory?
Well, just a discussion to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the dates. And if anybody has any comments or thinks of anything, just let me and the clerk know. And for the next council meeting on November 6th, we'll have a resolution to actually adopt the calendar as presented.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Vice Mayor, the floor is yours.
On March 17th, that's St. Patrick's Day. Do we have to wear green to the council meeting?
If you would like to codify that as law, we can make that ordinance happen as well.
Let's do it.
I was looking at the January. January always has that 1, 2, 3, that 4 spread out. So we come in after Martin Luther King Day. The 7th, okay. All right, Councilman Fields, the floor is yours.
I was going to say Ms. Willis just corrected me about the VML. It doesn't affect VML. I was wrong this past year. They moved VML. We didn't move our council meeting. They moved VML. So that's that. And I think that's about it. I like that idea, Vice Mayor, about we were agreeing on. I like it. Let's do it.
All right, you looking for any action from council, Mr. Rogers?
No, not tonight. I just
Okay.
wanted council to have this. If there were any glaring issues, we can make those adjustments. So we will bring this back forward in a resolution to adopt the calendar for 2020 at our November 6th meeting.
All right, next on the agenda is the Conflict of Interest, Freedom of Information Act training. Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers?
Thank you, Mayor. So I added this as a discussion item because, as you all know, the staff as well as the council is required to complete training on conflict of interest as well as the Freedom of Information Act. So the town clerk and I are putting together some procedures and making available the link to the training to provide it to the council. So I just wanted to mention this kind of in an open session, just in case there was any discussion. But the clerk and I will be sending correspondence to show how to go online to do the conflict of interest training. Is available online. And then the FOIA training, the council has a little longer to take that, but the conflict of interest training has to be completed by all council by the end of the calendar year. So we will be sending a link to do that. It can be completed online. We also can make provisions for council to come in to the office to complete that training as well. So we'll send all of that out, and we don't have to do it all together, so we can coordinate with everyone individually. But I wanted to put that out to the body and let the public know that we're in compliance with this part of the state code. And so the clerk and I will follow up. FOIA, we have a little bit more time to complete it. So that's something that the clerk and I will plan to bring back potentially at a work session or maybe a retreat in January, where we can sit and talk about the types of, so we can get more specific with the types of requests that we actually get in regards to your duties as a council.
And I guess in that, we add, when are the financial disclosures due? What's the date that those are due?
Is that November? Do you remember?
Or
We'll send, we can.
Because I know those are close too.
Those will actually come out toward November. They'll be sent to you, but you cannot fill them out until after January 1.
Oh, so okay,
Yeah, so you have to go through the calendar year first.
All right, got it. All right, any action from us on
No, just wanted to put it as a discussion item, and as I mentioned, the clerk and I will send correspondence to all the council so that we can make sure that we meet those training requirements.
All right, council, any discussion, any questions on it? All right, seeing none, we're gonna move over to the legislative agenda that was either updated, prepared, or added to by our town attorney.
That's correct. Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah. Let's see. I have the proposed 2020 legislative agenda in front of you. It is a reiteration of 2019 with a couple of things added. I didn't want to delete anything myself. If there's anything that council wants to delete, then I'm happy to delete that today. I just really want everyone to look at it, digest it, decide what they want to remove. Tell me if there's anything they want to add. If there's any discussion tonight, we can do it tonight. You can shoot me emails if there's something you think of so that I can bring it back to you for a discussion and adoption at the following meeting.
Okay, we'll start with Councilman Brewer and work our way down. Oh, town manager, you want to add something to what she said there?
Well, just one thing, we do want to get a consensus tonight about the items that are here because we are planning to have our legislative reception with our state delegation on November the 12th. So it is a little time sensitive in terms of trying to be prepared for that. So I just want to have council to have that in mind before our discussion.
All right, so what we can do is we can do like we did last year and just go through and get feedback on each item from council to see if they, and then we'll just mark, keep, delete, update. All right, so the first one, recognizing towns as a locality. The town of Dumfries is requesting the General Assembly and the executive branch to recognize towns as essential units of local government, and town sovereignty should be considered in all legislation. No legislation should be enacted that allows counties to upshur or diminish the authorities of town. The General Assembly and executive branch should scrutinize any bill dealing with laws of general applications to local governments to avoid enacting any laws that would be sources of possible conflicts between the counties and towns. The General Assembly and executive branch should recognize the unintended consequence of inadvertently omitting towns from legislation. All right, anybody got problems with any of that?
Other than the typo?
Yeah, other than the typo, you have that. All right, so we'll keep that. Transportation related issues. Supporting and funding for the widening of Route 1 through the town of Dumfries remains the highest priority for the town of Dumfries. Small towns don't have the same capabilities to fund transportation projects as our larger partners do, and the use of state and regional funding to complete the Route 1 widening project is essential for economic development and the reduction of congestion in the town and adjacent areas. As a result, the town of Dumfries opposes any reductions to funding for the Northern Virginia component of the House Bill 2313 in 2013, and further supports any efforts that will designate the widening of Route 1 through Dumfries a priority for future funding considerations. The town of Dumfries opposes any revisions to transportation funding bills that will reduce funding to localities in order to address any short fundings in state revenues.
Excuse me, Mayor. I just wanted to make it clear that these transportation these are separate items. So
Okay, so let's look at that first paragraph. That's a great point because I had a thought on that too. So as a result, the town of Dumfries opposes any reductions to funding the Northern Virginia component of House Bill 2013 and further supports any efforts that would designate the widening of Route 1 through the town of Dumfries as a priority for future funding consideration. And I think we need to say in there somewhere that we want them to restore or repay back all the money that they took out of that for that metro in Arlington that they kind of, I think last year or the year before, they took money away from House Bill 2313. 2 years ago, they took money away for transportation. And so I know that we need to get some type of language in there to ask that we want our money back for Northern Virginia transportation projects. Anybody else? Councilman Brewer, you had something to add?
No, it's on. Well,
okay,
you've got transportation, and then you've got after that you've got another transportation item in here. Recognition and consideration of town as a separate entity in all legislative. Couldn't we incorporate both of these? instead of having these separate?
For the recognizing towns as a locality? Well, there's other reasons.
Well, no, not as locality, but legislation as it pertains to transportation funding, one right after.
The next sentence,
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
the town oppose any revision to transportation funding bills that will reduce funding
I can combine those.
okay. All right. And then the third paragraph says regarding VDOT or Virginia Department of Transportation, local road maintenance funding, the town of Dumfries supports a change to the funding formula from lane mileage to lane volume. In the alternative, Dumfries requests changes that provide additional funding to localities that maintain roads and have roads that exceed the statewide average traffic volumes for such type roads by more than 20%.
I recommend we may want to remove this item. I think we need to look at hard numbers to figure out what the impact actually will be. And I think also we'll do our due diligence to see what other localities, particularly in Northern Virginia, are, whether they're in favor of this or the existing funding formula. I think the idea is that we want the state to chip in more revenue. I think that's the idea. I just don't know that the language is accurate. So I think we could convey simply that we would support any increases to revenue sharing for roadway maintenance from the state. I think we could say it a little more plainly rather than to be this.
So simplify the sentence.
Right.
Put a number on it, yeah.
Yeah.
So rather than have the lane mileage to lane volume and the 20%, you just want to make it a simple statement.
Right.
Yes.
I think this spoke to a specific proposal, but I'm just not sure without seeing hard numbers what the impact would be for the town.
Possum Point Road was the reason this
Yeah.
right here was put in there.
And then, all right. Anybody else got anything on that? That we good? All right. The town of Dumfries also supports a change to the composition of the Commonwealth Transportation Board to allow greater representation from urban, dense, suburban areas of the Commonwealth. It is also imperative that town should have one vote as a member of the Northern Virginia Regional Transportation Authority. No, so we don't have a vote, but what we have is we have a seat at the table and we have a voice. So as the sitting member, so what happens is it rotates towns. Right now, with our turn, Dumfries, we sit on the board. So we have a meeting the second Thursday of every month. But when a vote comes up or anything, we can interject whatever we want to put in there and they can actually vote. We just don't have a vote. What happened is Leesburg is essentially the largest town up here in Northern Virginia. So if any town would get that vote, it would go to Leesburg by the numbers and by the volume. So we don't necessarily need a vote to influence or impact Northern Virginia transportation. All we need is to continue to keep our seat at the table.
So delete that paragraph?
No, I'm not saying delete it.
Okay.
I'm just essentially saying how it's functioning now and how we're getting along and getting done. Because I'm able to interact with the stuff. When we had the coal ash and they was talking about legislation, I was able to slide some stuff in about our Possum Point Road into their legislative agenda. So I didn't necessarily need a vote, but it went through.
How does council feel about requesting for the change in composition and the addition of a vote for towns?
It's very good.
So is that?
Well, we already have that. I mean, that alternates from town to town to town.
It's not a vote. It's not a vote.
It's not. Yeah, we don't have a
I
vote.
know,
So
but
yeah.
there is, what they do is it alternates.
We have
The voting
representation.
seat alternates.
It's not a voting seat. It's a non-voting seat. It's a seat to go and participate in the discussion, but not make a vote.
So we're like, I sit next to like a governor's
Eleanor Holmes
aide,
Norton.
you know, a VDOT representative. I sit next to like 3 or 4 other non-voting people that just have a voice.
All right, well, wait a minute now. When Jerry was a part of here, he was a voting member.
No, he didn't have a vote. He was
I know
always
had
fighting.
one at the seat.
Yeah.
And the voting member is only one voting member. That alternated.
You're talking about, I think, the CTB, Commonwealth Transportation Board.
That's it.
Yeah.
But these are two separate items.
Yeah.
The first one is about the CTB on page 8, but on page 9, this is a totally separate item about MVT.
Oh, MVT, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they're not together.
Okay, so the Commonwealth Transportation Board, we want greater representation. All right, so that statement can stay.
So CTB can stay. What about MVTA? Do we need a vote, or
Yes.
are you happy with your representation and no vote?
We can still
Leave it
push
like
for the
it
vote.
is?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can push for the vote. All right. The town of Dumfries supports the continuation of the current system of VDOT maintenance of secondary highways. As a result, Dumfries strongly opposes any action that would change the current system of secondary road maintenance to require local governments to maintain the secondary highways.
Yeah, that needs to stay.
Yeah, that definitely needs to stay. All right, last transportation statement. In addition, the town of Dumfries asks that the language be added to specifically include new sidewalk projects being eligible for House Bill 2313 funding. An expanded sidewalk network provides alternative transportation options and reduces motorized vehicle use and congestion. Revised ranking criteria language and transportation fund in the House Bill 2313, House Bill 2, and House Bill 599 regarding congestion mitigation and additional capacity should specifically include sidewalk funding in dense urban areas where providing alternative means of transportation reduces single occupancy auto use. I feel like we should say something specifically to Smart Scale as well, you know, in this transportation, like Smart Scale from what we're, so Smart Scale just need to be used for what it's intended to be. And it was supposed to take the human aspect and the politics out of it and just go based on the scoring model. But, you know, everybody who talks to the people that made the decision, like all the money for Smart Scale, because Dumfries ranked pretty high with Smart Scale last year. And we should have, you know, been funded for this construction, but the politics of it went all to the Hampton Roads Tunnel. And so I'm thinking of some language, and we talked about this on last Thursday too at MVTA. We were trying to figure out some language to put in there to say that Smart Scale needs to be used for what it's intended. And that came from Chair Randall. She was like,
Put
we
it
need
in
to,
there.
yeah, just put it in. Use Smart Scale to just say we support using Smart Scale the way it should be used.
But is that good enough? Because how easy is it to change what it's intended for?
I'll pull some language on the intention when it was enacted,
Yeah.
and we'll get it. And I'll bring it back. We can tweak it if you have some issues with it. I'll send it out to you in advance of the next meeting if anybody has comments.
Because what's happening, somebody's still making decisions. It should be a formula.
Right, if it's a formula, then you just remove the human element, like you said.
All right, anybody got anything else on transportation related issues? All right, seeing none, we move to the next section, recognition and consideration of towns as a separate entity in all legislation, especially as it pertains to transportation funding. The town of Dumfries strongly supports town voting membership. We said, so this is kind of redundant
Right.
on regional transportation authority. So do we need to add that in again? Towns do not vote on MVTA, yet town transportation projects are subject to the same criteria as cities and counties. Towns require either equal membership or different criteria for funding. Town projects cannot compete with county and city projects for equal funding. So I think here we need to add some language to say, because a lot of our money filters through the county, right? Don't we get a pot of money that filters through the county?
Well, I would strike this item.
Yeah.
The 30% funding does flow through the county, but it's not always a bad thing as a town that things flow through the county, as long as we can be considered based off of the merit of our projects. And most grants that you have, collaboration is another check in your box when you're talking about getting funding. So I think this is just, I think we're making our point with transportation and the other agenda items. I think we could just do without this particular one.
And things flowing through the county, sometimes the county can help be an advocate for us, because when we improve
Don't
our
give them no
transportation,
more credit than what they
Well,
do.
when-
They also take money away from us too.
improving our
Or not give it
roads
to us when we're
improves their
entitled to it.
transportation as well.
So I was just
As long
thinking
as
of
we're playing
a
nice
statement
together.
urging the county to support our transportation project. I know, I think they just did a resolution for us
Right.
on our smart scale.
Right, and keep in mind, this is what we want the state delegation to carry.
State.
So,
All right, very well.
and the other thing to consider with these items is the more people that would say ditto to this in terms of jurisdiction, that helps our friends in the state to say we'll carry this for you.
All right, so let's strike that paragraph.
Mayor, I have a
Councilor
question.
Miles.
Yeah. So I know we had talked about developing multiple legislative agendas, one for the county, one for the state, and one for the federal level. Is that something? Are we just doing this now because it's due on November 12th, and then we'll get to the other ones in time, or where are we at with that? Because just in respect to what the mayor asked about the county partnership.
I mean, well, the county it has been since I've been here, the county has been a partner with our, particularly related to Route 1 in terms of helping support our funding applications. So I'm looking forward to continually being able to work with the county to have their support. In terms of federal, I don't know if we had any items that,
We don't.
Yeah.
The only time we've ever done anything through the federal government is when we had the 9/11 money, and that was, and we had to kick and scream to get that. So.
And there are typically few items that will flow from the federal level directly to the local level. So if there are things that we need to advocate the feds for, we really need to work in conjunction with the state. There are exceptions. And if you know of any or think of any potential items, we can see what bucket we need to put that in. So that it's appropriate to do that.
Dredging Quantico Creek, that's federal. That requires federal funding.
We're already restoring it.
No, you're restoring up here. I'm talking about down here.
I got you.
Behind with a tobacco silted in.
Because what they did was they went through and Maureen Cadigan had Occoquan dredged, and that was through federal money.
And just to get federal money, we don't necessarily have to have a federal legislative agenda. We can, there's other channels. I'm just saying for everyone, if there's things that we want to seek partnership from the federal government, we're still actively doing that.
All right, next is unfunded mandates. Historically, the General Assembly continues to place unfunded mandates on local government, despite concerns expressed across the state that there has been a continued increase in these mandates over the past several years. The town of Dumfries strongly supports any effort to eliminate or suspend unnecessary mandates on local government, and the town council opposes any new state mandates that are not fully funded by the Commonwealth in their budget, and opposes the shifting of fiscal responsibility from the state to the localities for existing programs. Yep,
Yeah, that's like our MS4.
I think that's a unanimous nod there. In that regard, the town of Dumfries also supports legislation requiring bills with fiscal impacts on local government to be filed on or before the first day of the legislative section. Physical impact statement plays an important role in the decision-making process of the General Assembly, and such a deadline would allow for time to properly estimate physical impact sooner on the localities and give a better understanding of unfunded mandates that might result from any such legislation that is passed. I think that's well written.
Well, it is, but according to Jerry Conley, he said that the county would not receive any information until after the state has decided on that. That's why they call them unfunded mandates, because the state doesn't know they're coming down from the federal government, and they pass it on to us. So for the state to give us basically a heads up on this is pretty much impossible, unless you can convince the Congress and the Senate to get up off their behinds and decide this stuff before the state has their legislative meeting. But,
So that's something to add to the federal legislative agenda. Maybe, no?
what's that?
I said that sounds like a federal issue and not a state issue.
Well, no, the federal regulations, their mandates come to the state passes on to us. So who's the bad guy? We are, because we have to increase taxes. Not your state level, not your federal level. All funnels down right here. We're the bad guys. So when we got to put out another $1 million for Quantico Creek or the anything having to do with that, we're the bad guys or not.
All right. So aid to local law enforcement. The town of Dumfries opposes the reduction of any 599 funding to local law enforcement and encourages the General Assembly to restore the previous funding levels back to fiscal year 2008 in the amount of $160,467 and provide additional support to this program. Chief, you all right with that?
I probably would strike the amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dollar amount.
Because that amount can go up and down. And
Yeah.
That was going to be my comment, because we don't know what the current level is yet. And if it happens to go over that,
if it goes up.
yeah, then we're asking for an amount lower than what they currently have.
So we'll take out the sentence in the amount of 160,000. Just
Well,
cross that.
just we're encourage the General Assembly to provide additional support through this program. We'll get rid of the restore funding levels back to 08 in the amount of.
Okay. All right. Very well. Environment. The town of Dumfries, with our resolution we did in 2012-067, has committed to working with organizations such as Friends of Quantico Bay to protect our waterways through a variety of programs that include restoration, dredging, settlement control, runoff, abatement, and invasive species removal. At the present time, restoration measures are urgently needed along Quantico Creek, and the town supports any legislation that will assist the town in those efforts. The town applied to receive a stormwater local assistance fund, a SLAF matching grant. Okay, let's look at the first one then. All right, I don't think we need that. We already got a resolution on.
Yeah, I would get rid of this item.
The entire item or the first paragraph?
The first paragraph is what you're talking about.
Okay.
And the second one, really.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, it just says that it costs us a lot of money. I don't know what we actually.
You said we ain't asking for nothing. We just saying
Right.
the present restoration measures are urgently needed.
And quite frankly, SLAF still exists, so
Yeah.
nothing precludes us from continuing.
Yeah,
to
you could strike.
There
the
was in
rest
danger of being unfunded, and then it was funded.
Yeah.
So it was.
Now we 86 in those two. First
Keep
two.
the last paragraph in.
The last one says the town of Dumfries is committed to supporting all efforts to restore the quality and sustainability of the Potomac River and Chesapeake Bay in a fiscally responsible manner that provides federal and state assistance to local efforts such as those in the town of Dumfries. We believe the federal government and the Environmental Protection Agency must not adopt a multitude of unfunded mandates and policies upon the Commonwealth, the costs of which are then passed down to local jurisdictions. The towns in the state of Virginia cannot absorb the high costs of this MS4 program projects, which are then strapped on the backs of our constituents,
Amen.
causing us to raise your taxes.
Yes, indeed.
Stormwater fees.
What we got stormwater fees at? What I say?
No, that's what. So.
Stormwater fees. You're right.
Yeah,
Not the taxes, the fees.
So,
You're right.
unfunded mandates. Those
Tax and fee is the same thing. Tax and a fee is the same thing.
we have to use different language.
I know you all try to finesse. You cannot polish a turd. Okay, still turd.
I do just want to point out that in the language of this last paragraph, the mandates that we get are to be passed on through the stormwater fee. So we do have that mechanism. It's not pretty, no one likes it, but that is how part of that is offset. So we may just want to consider that in the language.
So a question, since we're talking stormwater,
I wouldn't want to put in there that we collect fees because we don't want the state knowing what we collect. So
They don't.
it's not written in it. It just
So-
says we cannot, we saying we can absorb the high cost of this MS4 program.
Right. I probably would just maybe get rid of the very last sentence.
why is that? We're
Well-
telling them that we can't afford their unfunded
The
mandate.
town manager's saying we can because we can raise taxes and pay it.
Well, I'm not saying we can.
We
but
can raise
to-
the stormwater management fee.
to say that something is strapped to the back of our
It
constituents. It's kind of colorful.
Well,
language.
no, but I mean, you want them to open their eyes up, just tell them about the constituents and, they always look at, every 2 years they're looking at votes. So
Vice Mayor?
I get it, but I don't particularly care for the language either. Just in keeping this very clean and more legal sounding, the whole strapped to the back of our constituents, I'm not really feeling that language either. I'm sure there's another way we can say it, because when we say strapped to the back of our
Sound like a bomb.
constituents, it sounds like, yeah.
We can say that are then passed on to our constituents.
Yeah, or imposed upon on our constituents.
I like strapped.
I'm sure you do.
Yes, I do.
Are you strapped?
It causes a visual that's not necessary.
It may not be hardship either. It's just about,
The same thing as strapped.
It's passed on to our
it's passed on
the
to,
residents of
right.
the town.
Mel?
Just in the sentence where the word, after the word project, strike which to the end. On that last paragraph.
So read it how
The
you,
towns in the state of Virginia can now absorb the high cost of the MS4 program projects, period.
put a period after projects. Oh,
Oh,
and yeah, she said just put a period after projects.
And
All right, and get rid of the strap on the back of the constituents.
You gotta make them aware of who they're affecting.
We
All
can
right.
say we
Because
could
they
then
do
passed
lose
on to the
track of it.
taxpayers.
Right. I do agree. I do think we should leave something there. I just, I think we said earlier, maybe just,
We'll trust the town attorney to bring something back. All right, next, personal property tax. The town of Dumfries requests that our legislature take whatever actions are necessary to prohibit counties from imposing their own personal property tax on our town residents.
Now, this one is a little less relevant if they won't let us collect personal property taxes.
Right.
So if they're not going to let the town collect personal property taxes, which is what they said to us when we last requested that
Charter change.
in our charter change,
Yep.
it doesn't, this isn't as relevant if they're going to say no.
And both the Dems and the Republicans, neither
here's-
wanted to
here's a
carry
little
that.
It's because
backstory on
if we
that,
collect
right?
it, the county loses money.
Here's a little backstory on that. Back when Nancy West was the mayor, her and Kimberly Alexander went down to the legislature to have the ability to have towns impose personal property tax. Chuck Colvin was ready to sign it. We had a public hearing the same night. Bunch of the people out there, oh, you're just going to tax us more? No. Just because you have it doesn't mean you're imposing it. What we're basically going to do is take it away. But we have to have the ability to do that. So,
And
everybody in their convoluted minds out there were saying, no. Well, Clyde Washington was sitting in as vice mayor then, and he was presiding over the council. And what happened was he had, we took the vote. The majority of the vote went against imposing a personal property tax. I called Chuck, and I said, "Don't even bring it to the floor." So, if the town has the ability to impose personal property, the town also has the ability to not impose personal property. That's what I was getting at the whole time. Oh, no, we know what you're going to do. No, you're looking out the side window instead of looking out the windshield. Yeah. So I think the town needs to have the ability to impose personal property. Not necessarily you will.
Well, and if we're going to leave this in here, we also need to put in our legislative agenda that we want the ability to collect personal property taxes.
Right.
Because other towns, and it's not fair to the town of Dumfries because the state code gives towns within the Commonwealth the ability to collect personal property taxes, but our charter exempts us from that.
Yeah.
So other towns in the Commonwealth can collect personal property taxes, but
So-
not Dumfries.
So we submitted it as a part of our charter change with our
And it
election
was
bill.
rejected.
And it was rejected by both sides, both the House and the Senate, both.
So if you add it
rejected
back in there, that's
We can-
something
yeah.
that when you have your
Legislative meeting, we
with
could talk.
exactly, that you can talk to the legislatures about to see if you can garner support for that. If you can't, then it
Vote
dies again.
Republican.
But
If you can't vote Republican, get their butts out of office if they won't support that. Dumb and dumber.
The Senate and
Team
both the
rate.
House turned it down.
And
All right, so add the second one in there, to personal property that we have the ability to collect too. All right, wireless communication facility
Just one
placement.
point of clarity. but
Point of
that-
clarity.
That would be sending through a charter change, right?
Yeah, that would have to, but we submitted
would,
it
but
once, so we had to send it back again.
right, we would have to.
So we did submit it,
Right, so we should remove this item from the legislative agenda.
Absolutely not.
and you don't want it to be, well,
I mean,
so we can call it a charter change as a part of our legislative agenda.
well, we need the charter change, and that needs to be approved before this item is actually relevant. And keep in mind, the way that
No.
it's.
No,
you can-
we wanna
they
have the
can-
conversation
They can
with
vote
them.
on that and approve it. We would have to then change our charter.
Right, but why would we do it backwards?
I mean,
Well, we want to talk to them about what our priorities are.
Just
This is an agenda.
You're right, and I'm just throwing out there.
Mm.
Obviously, you get more favor from things that other people would agree with, and you already know that the county would not be in concurrence with this. So, wouldn't it be better to get the charter change that we need first?
Well, we don't know what they'll be in agreement with because our representative is leaving and a new one will be coming in. So,
If
you
I
know.
was the manager of the town, I would not. I mean, of the
You are the
county.
manager.
If I was,
Did we get somebody else new here in the last hour and a half?
We didn't know.
if I was manager for the county, I would not.
County executive.
this. Yeah, if I was a county executive, I would not support this.
We're not asking the county executive to support it. We're asking our representative for Potomac District that used to be the Dumfries District to support it.
I just want us to have a legislative agenda that is as bulletproof as it possibly.
Well,
But the county ain't gonna
hold on,
see
wait a minute.
this.
Let me clarify that real quick. Did you look and see how long these things have been on the agenda?
Yeah, but I
There's
haven't
nothing
been-
in here that's bulletproof at all.
I just want to make sure everything is properly vetted internally before we, invite company over.
You want your house clean before you bring the
Always.
company over?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the house is clean.
All right, I'm
All right.
comfortable.
All right, wireless communication facility placement. We oppose any effort to limit or eliminate the local government's authority to review and approve the use of our right-of-ways, and we strongly oppose legislation that limit the town's authority to regulate the placement of wireless communication facilities in the town right-of-ways and on town-owned facilities. Any private use of public right-of-ways should be valued at fair market value. Neither the federal nor the state government should enact any laws like the FCC already did to shift the award of franchises to the use the public right-of-ways from local governing body to any state or federal agency. Individuals and business in the community help to purchase and maintain right-of-ways through their taxes, and the right-of-ways should not be used for private purposes without express approval by and compensation to the local government for the right-of-way use the space. Local governments must have authority to control the right-of-ways and should continue to have the authority to approve the location and fees for any attachment or co-location of communication infrastructure on local government buildings and facilities. And Mark Warner said this was necessary for them to take our right-of-ways so that they can get 5G quicker.
They can get it just as fast if they're paying us for every lane, for
Yeah,
every,
they should pay us.
every foot, every
But-
linear foot that they lay down.
But I guess he said everybody wasn't gonna agree. But I think he also owned Nextel too, didn't he? But I don't know. Oh, wait a second. All right, I'm gonna leave that alone. No. But he pushed the FCC to get that 5G. So anyway, we're gonna leave that invitation in there. All right, memorandums of agreement with the county. The town of Dunfree supports an amendment to the Code of Virginia which mandates that counties that contain incorporated towns must provide services to the town residents of equal parity with the county residents without the necessity of us having a written agreement, and that for those services provided, county regulations and standards should apply.
Like farm marshal services and that kind of thing.
Thank God we had to write our MOU for our police to get their CAD system. Should be automatic. All right, next, support revenue sharing with the state. The town of Dunfree supports any state revenue sharing formula to assist local governments with our public infrastructure needs, so long as the formula includes recognition of the needs in high growth localities. All right, transit occupancy tax.
Hang on a minute.
All right, let's go back. Supporting revenue sharing.
I think we need to take out as long as the formula includes recognition of needs in high growth localities.
What
We are
defines
not a
what?
high growth
Yeah, I was gonna say
You
what
may not
defines
miss that.
by the census.
Okay.
All right, so take off high growth localities. TOT, the transient occupancy tax. The Commonwealth should not allow online travel companies to avoid paying the full transit occupancy tax. The town of Dunfree supports legislation to clarify this in the state code. I think they are paying, but yeah, we can put it in the state code. All right, here's something new this year. Mental health crisis service and assistance. All right, so the town of Dunfree supports efforts to ensure that adults and children experiencing a mental health crisis are able to obtain timely evaluation and assistance, including emergency custody and temporary detention, as close to their home community as possible, and further supports the statewide implementation of alternative transportation options to help as many individuals in crisis get evaluation services and treatment, with the goal of eliminating the reliance on local law enforcement for extended transportation and custody services. Are you going to speak to that a little bit since it's new?
I can. That's just, it's something that I added in there because it's a discussion that we've been having at some of our VML meetings about providing more assistance for, like it says, the timely evaluation and assistance, especially in the emergency custody and temporary detention issues, because we have our guys taken off the road to go, the local law enforcement to go deal with the transportation and custody services when there's these mental health issues, when if we had more funding, they could be dealt with more efficiently and in a better manner by more trained individuals that could provide the proper crisis intervention and emergency services needed for mental health and crisis
Well,
assistance.
wouldn't they need to build more mental health facilities for temporary house or temporary
It's
custody?
well, it's not just that. These guys have to take time off the road to go do transportation and things like that.
Yeah,
If we had
Cone
other,
hospital and all that stuff. Yeah.
right, but it's to get more funding for additional services in those localities. If it led to building more institutions, that would be great. But
Most of the time, they're carrying them to Potomac Hospital because that's the closest hospital to here anyway. That's in Prince William County.
right, but if there were alternative crisis intervention transportation options with trained individuals to deal with that, it would take the burden off of our local law
So you're
enforcement
wanting to pass it on to the county
or the state.
or the state? Okay.
It's not just the county, but
Well, yeah, it would be the county. State's not gonna handle it. Be a county.
So you're looking here with this, you're looking for alternative transportation and emergency custody and temporary detention services? In a nutshell?
yes.
Okay. All right, so you're just looking for funding, or you're just supporting the alternative transportation and emergency custody and temporary detention?
We're looking for the state to implement alternative options to help in crisis intervention so that it's not all left on our law enforcement and that we have alternative options when this comes up.
All right, got it. Jensen.
Yeah, VML also, I went to a class and they were talking about this particular intervention with trained professionals who takes the burden off our local police force in doing all this. And I think it's a great idea.
It's a social service.
It is. It is a social service. And they were talking about trained professionals from the Department of Social Services being involved in this. And, you know, the people who are in crisis are handed off to these professionals to deal with whatever intervention that they need, whether it's, you know, whatever.
Right, because we need individuals properly trained. Our police officers are trained to handle situations, but there's people that have mental health crises that need people that are trained to deal with that particular mental health crisis and deal with it on a regular basis to handle those situations. And we need them available.
Right. I mean, our country's in a mental health crisis anyhow, and any little bit that we can put on our legislative agenda to bring it to the forefront, along with the other people that I have seen at VML doing the same thing from other localities, not necessarily just towns, but cities and counties. I think it's a good thing.
It's something that we've been discussing at some of our meetings that I think it's important for the town to support.
I do too.
All right.
Yep.
Phils?
Echoing Ms. Willis, I think we were in the same class at VML. Yeah, I caught the tail end of it. What people may not realize is the strain that it does cause on the law enforcement. Many hours off the road and off the streets. You can spend your whole shift and then some dealing with that. Then the burden also comes on the sheriff's office after that to take over. So it's definitely needed because our guys are needed on the street.
All right. Let's go to redistricting reform, which is another new one. The town of Dumfries urges the members of the Virginia General Assembly to pass in its second reading the pending redistricting reform resolution, along with any enabling legislation necessary to implement the amendment in order to allow the voters of the Commonwealth of Virginia to vote on a measure that will depoliticize the drawing of district lines through the creation of a transparent bipartisan redistricting commission using clear, objective, and well-defined redistricting criteria.
Now, this is something you've seen before, the council, and if you want me to put in here that, you know, that you passed the resolution in support of this, I could add that in there in the resolution number. But, but it's, I thought that since we passed the resolution in support of this, it's something that we should put forth in our agenda too, to bring to their attention, to make sure they see that we passed this resolution and we're serious about this and that we support the reform.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so a couple things I don't see that I think that, and I don't know what to say. One of the biggest things I know that was a heated discussion this year at VML were games of skill versus games of chance. It's popping up all machines.
So you want to support some legislation to delineate and to put in the code definitions and determinations on what these games are.
So nobody had no clear solutions.
Nobody had anything.
Nobody had clear solutions at none of these sessions on. Some places they're able to track the revenue that's coming on, but not in the state of Virginia. These machines are not online currently, so you can't track the revenue from it. Some people, of course, have it in their zoning. I know we have it in our zoning that they can have no more than 2 machines in a lot of these places, and people got mad who had 4, but that's okay. So, but
and you'll probably see them apply for a conditional use permit, come in asking for more soon.
You don't have quick shop?
So you know, now there's lines at the machines because we took away some of their machines. But yeah, let's put some legislation. Let's put something in there, say that we support legislation to help whatever with these games of skill.
What do you think they're gonna try to put in up here?
It's a game of chance. They're
Skill
regulated.
test?
Well, we need legislation to regulate and define the activities.
Yeah.
Is that
So
already regulated by the state?
No, they're video games right now. You can
Right.
can see the next hand that's coming up, so it's defined as a game of skill.
Game of skill.
Because you can quit at any time because you know what's coming up. You can say, "Oh, I don't like that hand that's coming up," so you can quit. I don't know who defined that. Maybe we need to redefine.
Somebody about 20 years old that's in the legislature down there.
So maybe we need to support legislation to redefine what a game of skill is and a game of versus a game of chance.
Gambling is gambling.
Weren't we talking at VML about the being able to track the revenue? And if the state of Virginia doesn't allow us to see it, they could tell us anything. Oh, we're making $4.50 per machine. I mean, that's ridiculous, but you know.
So let's add that in the language.
I've
that
got revenue tracking on here.
revenue tracking. Yep.
Also, with the personal property tax, this issue with personal property tax, those machines, every single one of them, personal property taxes are imposed on it.
There's a tax for amusement games in the town of, I believe, $15 per machine.
We need to up it for sure.
So we'll talk about that. Put that on the mid-year review.
Right.
I believe the current tax is
The
$15
mid-year
per
budget
machine.
review, we'll
It's-
talk
it's
about
in
that.
that ballpark. For
Well, one of the things that
Video
they're
games, basically.
that Colonial Downs is talking about is all this revenue generated. We can't see it. How do we know what it is, first of all? And if we're only charging $15 for personal property tax on that machine.
Well,
it's not personal
Well, I'm
property
sorry.
tax. It's yeah.
So it's an amusement tax. But even that, they still have to pay personal property tax. And the personal property tax would go to, guess who? Prince William County, because we pay personal property tax to Prince William County. And yeah,
Not sure
you
if
and me
that would
both.
fall under there or not.
But
I don't-
anyhow, so I think we need to get a handle on this before a lot of this stuff goes down, because we need to set the town up to be a winner. Because they're saying win-win. I mean, it really, however the vote goes, if they pass it, then we need to be able to take action quickly.
And the other thing, I don't think we need to really to weigh in on was the driver's license thing was a big thing.
The real ID?
No, not the real ID. It was unlicensed immigrant, undocumented immigrants driving.
License, driver's license.
Yeah, getting drives. I guess the big thing with that was dealing with they can't get insurance because they don't have a driver's license.
Because they can't show legal presence.
So it's hit
So
and
they go to Maryland
runs,
where they don't have to show
and
legal
it
presence.
raises our uninsured motorist rate. So we just was supporting legislation to allow them to pass a driver's test and get a license, so that they're licensed, so that way they can get insurance.
Right, and it wouldn't have
Now,
to.
wait.
Maryland allows it.
Boy.
Yeah.
That right there is the biggest crock I've ever heard in my life.
Push your mic so we can hear you.
You sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
There might be some expletives coming out of this mouth. Allowing people or illegal to obtain a driver's license is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And the excuse is, so it lowers our uninsured motorist fee?
That's not just it.
That's not a reason, that's an excuse. So can you go to their country and obtain a license if that's the case? No. So, this is something that's going to be ongoing for years and years and years, long after I'm dead. But with the issue coming up now, it's more and more prevalent. This is something we don't need to be dipping our toes in. This is for the state to handle and the federal government. So, we don't issue driver's license. That's up to the state. Let the boys in Richmond handle that. We just need to, we need to pretty much stay silent on that. Let them do their job. And if they don't know how to do it, then we'll vote them out and get somebody in that does.
Councilman Miles.
Just first off, want to point out that no human being is illegal. We do have some undocumented persons that live in, that reside in our community. We had a lengthy discussion at VML about this topic, and the issue is more a public safety issue than it is about giving illegal persons or people that are undocumented.
They're not illegal, but
I was quoting you, okay? But undocumented individuals driving privileges. These individuals are driving anyway, and they're on the road. And there's no tracking mechanism. If there's an accident, there's no way to reach them. There's no way for insurance companies to get in contact with them. So it's a public safety issue more than it is.
Go to jail if you're out there driving, ain't supposed to be on the road and they cause an accident to kill somebody.
It's a public safety issue, and it was a heated conversation in VML. The reality of the situation is these individuals are going to drive. So it's whether or not we're going to have a tracking mechanism to find out who they are or where they are to know what's going on, or if they're just going to continue to drive.
Take tests.
Yeah.
If they're caught, then they have a tracking mechanism. It's called a little bracelet around their ankle, all right? And they track them everywhere they go. Until they go to court. But
Well, one of the things that was brought up in VML when we were having the talk about the legislative agenda going forward was the city council member had his 2 children hit by someone who was undocumented, and they left the scene, and his insurance company didn't pay for the repair of the car or any hospital bills. So I think there definitely needs, in the state of Virginia, a mechanism. Well, they need a mechanism, Cliff, to track these people who are, they need some sort of provisional driver's license where they can't buy, they can't vote and things like that. But there, it's just like Sonia says, it's a public safety issue. I mean, I don't want my family on the road with people who literally have never had a driver's license in this country or any other place. So, I mean, it's going right back to it, it's public safety. And I think and it's a tracking mechanism. So that's what I believe.
Councilor Neville.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to add, as far as the public safety piece, to speak to it directly, it connects to the education piece. You have to learn how to drive. You have to pass the test. You have to learn the ways of the road in order to obtain a license. So this makes sure everyone with the license goes through the education component that leads to the public safety, in addition to the tracking.
All right, so do we want to add this to our legislation? Oh, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
So I support the licenses for the undocumented people. What I'm over here trying to figure out is whether or not that's something we need on our legislative agenda, and whether or not having it would be impactful or not. Like, to Cliff's point, we aren't the ones issuing licenses. So do we need to have that on our agenda in order to support the agenda, the legislative agenda?
That's really up to council, whether or not it's something that you want to say, we support this. You have 40% Hispanic population. That is a large portion of the undocumented immigrants. Not that all the individuals in Dumfries are undocumented, but if you've got a 40% Hispanic population, you have a certain amount of an undocumented immigrant population. And if your concern is that you want them to be able to get a driver's license, take the exam, learn the rules of the road, get insurance. I mean, in order for my son to take his driving test in 2 weeks, I have to bring my insurance information. I mean, you have to show in order to take the test, you have to show that you have you're licensed and you, I mean, or to take this, you have to show you have insurance, a vehicle to drive, that kind of thing.
Just because you have a driver's license doesn't mean you're getting insurance. You can go out and pay the $255.
Excuse me, I believe the floor is mine and the
The
attorneys.
DMV does regularly run routine checks, and if you don't have insurance, your license can get suspended. So
So I completely understand that and I agree with it. My question is whether or not we need to have that on our agenda in order to help it move forward.
I mean, I couldn't tell you what kind of impact that would have on our state legislature. It's entirely up to the town whether that's something that you want to tell your state legislature is important to you and the citizens in the town,
Okay.
or if it's something that you want to say, we're leaving this to you to decide.
Okay. Well, I do believe, based on the general consensus up here, that it is important to us.
Councilor Neville?
I was going to turn my light off after what the vice mayor just said. But what I was going to say before was there's power in numbers. And just as we had that conversation at VML, it was brought up, you know, one man, I can't remember where, what his locality was.
City of
Was it
Fredericksburg.
Okay.
Councilman Chuck Fry.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor. So although this may not directly impact all municipalities as they do others, you know, I think this is something, especially thing we need to put in place to show that we do stand in solidarity with the other municipalities that feel that way.
Councilor Lady Willis.
We are looking, you know, the town attorney just said something about the Hispanic population. Not all undocumenteds are Hispanic.
That's
They're
true.
from all over the world. And I think we need to stand in solidarity with VML. And I think because it was a very heated discussion at the VML meeting. And, you know, I think it's something that the state literally needs to take in hand. It's not us voting it in or out. I think the state of Virginia needs to do something about it.
All right, so we'll add this and maybe even next meeting do a resolution to figure out how we feel about it.
Mom always said, don't stick your nose where it don't belong. And your nose don't belong in the state's business. That's the state's business. If they feel that they need to pay for insurance for every undocumented, illegal, whatever, then they're going to do that. It's not up to us. We have our own problems we need to deal with here rather than add to it. I mean, if you have a 90% undocumented Spanish or whatever population and none are registered to vote, and you got 2% of everybody else, who you playing your fiddle to? The 90 or the 2? Go ahead and comment. You'd play to the 90.
I would say that when we were elected to represent everybody who lives within the town of Dumfries and to act in the best interest of the town. The driving permit discussion and the decision to give undocumented individuals driving permits is a public safety issue that affects the entire town. We have the right to represent everyone that's here.
All right, so was there anything else anybody
They're
wanted
going to
to
pay
add?
for it too.
Yes.
Councilman Fields, and then I'll go to you.
Guess I'm the only one that hasn't spoke yet on that hot topic. And when we were at VML, I spoke very adamantly about the support of the legislation going forward. As a spokesperson for a lot of Hispanic people that we have here in the town, documented and or undocumented, I'm full support of putting this in a legislative agenda.
All right, Council Lady Neville, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate Council Lady Willis's comments about all people, and we were all elected to represent all people regardless of how they arrived here. But I also want to add, as far as the legislative agenda, that we should consider adding information about increasing the power purchase agreement. We need to increase that cap from 50 megawatts to 500 megawatts. As I'm sure many of you have read lately in the news, that Fairfax County, the school systems, the government, pretty much all their buildings, they want solar power. And should they get that, I haven't followed up on the story, but should they receive the solar paneling they want, that will take up all the 50 megawatts that we have. So I'm asking that we include language in our legislative agenda to increase the cap on the solar power purchase agreement from 50 megawatts to 500 megawatts.
All right. Anybody else had any legislative items they wanted to lobby for? All right, seeing none, I think that concludes our discussion on the legislative agenda. Our next meeting is there's a senior luncheon for those who can afford to take off on Friday, October the 18th at 12:30. Come have lunch with the seniors. On October 19th to be our fall festival. We're going to also be unveiling the honorary street dedication for the McLaughlins at 10:30 in the morning before the fall festival. Today was the last day to register to vote. So if you might can still go online and do it. I don't know. So, but our elections are November the 5th. And the elections are going to take place where? Our DMV Select Customer Service Center will be open and the town administrative office will be closed because it is now a holiday for us. But the voting will take place still in our community center. And we'll have our next council meeting the day after the election, so it won't be on Tuesday. It'll be on Wednesday, November the 6th at 7 p.m. At this time, we will adjourn the meeting.
Mayor, if I may, I just want to bring two other important meeting dates to the public attention. On this Thursday, as we discussed, the VDOT is having the I-95 corridor meeting.
Yeah, absolutely right.
For our resident, they have several meetings, but this is probably the closest one to the town. It's at Freedom High School, 15201 Neabsco Mills Road. That's Woodbridge, Virginia, 22191. The meeting begins at 6 and is scheduled to end at 8. So we want all of the residents of the town and all of the supporters of the town to let your voice be heard and share with the Commonwealth that it's important that they support the town's Route 1 widening project. If you are unable to attend that meeting, you can still email your comments to, bear with me, VA95 corridor plan at VDOT.Virginia.gov. So we will provide that information on our website and social media, but I wanted to make sure that residents were aware of that. Also on October 30th at Dumfries Elementary School, we will be having a public outreach meeting for our comp plan and master plan update for the town. This is very important. This is residents' opportunity to inform this work that we were fortunate enough to be able to fund and undertake this fiscal year. So we hope that all the residents of the town will come out and let your voice be heard at that October 30th meeting for our comprehensive plan update and our master planning efforts as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Rogers. Do we have a date for the RAD program?
We do not have a date, but you know that that is at the top of my list. And so as soon as I get confirmation, I'm actively working on it. As soon as I get confirmation, I will share that with you and the council.
All right, anything else for the good of the council? Seeing none at this time, we will adjourn our meeting. It's on the agenda, just like our stretch break.